Now, Ben's joining us as well for this segment tonight as well. Ben, do you see brighter days ahead for Ferrari now with Mattia Binotto's departure?
Well, I have to say it'd be hard to get much worse than it got under Binotto. I think they fell as low as sixth in the constructors in 2020, if I recall correctly. So for a team like Ferrari to be that low and not really be in the championship hunt ever under his leadership is incredibly disappointing. I will say that, in terms of just my journey as an F1 fan, I started out, rooting for Ferrari because I've always liked the trajectory of Sebastian Vettel's career and, wanted him to emulate Michael Schumacher and bring that championship glory back to Maranello. And, they came close in 2017, 2018. But, ever since Binotto came in after Riva Bene was let go, it seemed like there was always something missing here. And they never really came close under his leadership to fighting for the championship. It looked like they might this year, but of course, Red Bull ended up pulling ahead. Ferrari had reliability issues. And the biggest issue is something that I think Parker Kligerman hit the nail on the head in a tweet of his. I want to just read it right now. He said, "When the budgets of your competitors have been near the same and are now near identical, the driver talents are nearly equal and the engineering talent is equal, you're left with one reason why Ferrari has continued to underperform, and that's culture." It's one word that I think sums up Ferrari very, very well. Now, I had the pleasure last night of being in Sellersville, Pennsylvania, at Sellersville Theater to see the NBC Formula One team reunited. Lee Diffie, David Hobbs, and Steve Madgett were on stage recapping the F1 season. And at one point, they played a video of something that happened in Brazil. And it was funny, that was almost kind of a theme of the night because so much happened in Brazil, even though it was supposed to be a year in review. That race kept coming up. But there was an instance, I think it was in qualifying, where Leclerc was expected to go out on new soft tires. And he was a little surprised because it was starting to drizzle a little bit. He thought they might choose to go on intermediates, but they wanted to send him out as quickly as they could on new softs. So Ferrari take the intermediate tires off and they put on used soft tires, drop the jack, and Leclerc's told to go. But he doesn't go because he's expecting new softs. And he's saying, "Guys, what are we doing?" And they're scrambling in the back. It was like Red Bull at Monaco in 2016 when Daniel Ricciardo didn't have his tires out there. They get one tire on. They're trying to throw the tire over the car to get it on the right side. And it was just this gigantic mess. And then finally, Leclerc's ready to go out of the pits. And Lee Diffie said, "Keep in mind, this is a sport where tenths of seconds decide who wins and who loses. And Leclerc's just sitting here for a minute trying to get the soft tires on his car. Ferrari are completely unprepared." And then Steve Matchett said something that I think was absolutely brilliant. He was quoting somebody somewhere. Of course, I've already forgotten. It wasn't his original words, but he said this saying applies perfectly to Mattia Binotto and to Ferrari as a whole. Binotto was not forced to resign from his current role here because he made bad decisions. He was forced to resign because he made no decisions. And I think that perfectly sums up the leadership at Ferrari, the Ferrari strategy that has been absolutely notorious over the years for not making decisions and for making delayed decisions that ultimately end up not going their way. There needs to be somebody in charge, whoever it ends up replacing Binotto. And they were also asked, who do you think is on your short list? And everybody acknowledged that, it's a really difficult job, no matter what team you're with, but particularly at Ferrari with the expectations that come with that. So we'll just have to wait and see, I guess, who's going to be promoted into that role. But I think letting go of Binotto, I think he probably would have been fired. It was probably just a courtesy thing that they allowed him to resign before they let him go because it needed to happen. I think that much is indisputable when you look at the record that they've had over the last couple of years. I think that's the first step. But again, a culture that has been manifested at this team for the last decade and a half now. The last time they won championships was 2007 for the drivers, 2008 for the constructors. There needs to be a culture change at Ferrari. And ultimately that starts with the team principal, but it can't just be the team principal. It has to be a culture change all throughout Maranello and all throughout the Ferrari team. And until that happens, they're not going to win a championship in Formula One ever again.
Jumped rather than pushed, Kobe. It seems at the moment is, I think, something that's been pushed around recently. How do you take all this?
I said, well, Josh, I think Ben did an excellent job in his explanation of this situation. What Ferrari needs is a leader, a real leader, somebody who's, I know we're going to get into that more in a little bit, but somebody who's not afraid to make those tough decisions. And as you said, Ben, he made no decisions at all because this is something that goes well beyond, just at the very top. This is a cultural issue that we've seen with Ferrari. And yes, I guess if you're a part of the Tifosi, you're going to be very excited, that Mattia Binotto is leaving, because I know when we're looking at other sports, when your team has a head coach that's not doing a good job, when they're fired at the end of the season, you're typically very excited because they're like, there's hope for the future. So right now, there's hope for Ferrari that they can turn around things sooner rather than later. And our own Adam Limmery says he thinks that Ferrari is going to be able to improve in 2023, and we'll certainly see about that, Adam. I know when you have a change like that, especially like this late, most of the stuff for 2023 right now is really set in stone. So whoever the new team principal is, he won't be able to put his stamp on this organization more so until like 2024, and also going into 2023 as well, because that's when they start, obviously preparing for the next year's car. So I think it may take a while for that cultural shift at Ferrari, but I do think right now you're definitely seeing the sunrise in the morning, that Ferrari can eventually get back to where they were.
Personally, I think this should have happened a long time ago, and I think it's only the first step, because I think the next firing or resigning, if we call it as well, will be Lawrence Mekies, who's the head of Ferrari strategy department as well. I think if as Ben said, Mattia Binotto was guilty of not making a single decision, then the man who has made every single decision for Ferrari this year has got every single one of them wrong and has cost them a world championship, is Lawrence Mekies, who in wet conditions decided to put dry tyres on the car, and in dry conditions decided to put wet tyres on the car in Brazil, because we were saying as well, in Monaco they put dry tyres on when the track was still wet, and in Brazil they put wet tyres on when the track was actually drying in the end of Q3. We were waiting for that comedy of errors to happen, and it happened then. So my personal take is Mattia Binotto is just the first to go. Lawrence Mekies will be the next one to go as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you so much for watching. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Grid Network highlights and analysis. And for full episodes of Grid Live Encore and other Grid programming, subscribe directly to Grid Network.